What are the other things for essentials? Clothes.
These. Debatable. I mean,
yeah, we're clothing optional.
If we didn't have we're not clothing optional.
We don't have an office to go to buy clothes.
I'm Sam.
I'm Brandon.
It's a Methods podcast where you get to be practical tips, gain insight. You're being rolling, so can you tone down me off my game? Oh yeah, he's like literally like the cheese grin. It's very odd. Welcome, guys. Yes, and just to know, the Middleton Madness is about the children this week. Topic to talk to you about today.
Something very real.
But something Middleton Madness that we want to talk about, our exciting topic, and we'll get it pumping a little bit. But we did have a very dear family, our great, rest in peace, and slide. But it was at a weekend, quick second. Brandon's,
the golden.
They have so many nicknames. Paint the picture here. Nanny, that's his mom's mom. Mom has passed away, so he's got his, and her.
Grandmas.
Right, and her are like, they godmothers. We've always, they've been called the golden nicknames because they are little Italian, all, below, and they're like crazy. I mean, they used to be. And, are all, in it for years and years.
Obviously, of course, American dream run well because we've got a professor who was a science,
science now. Gosh,
and
I love that
in
woman.
Medical field forever. Some of them had pensions, Social Security. I feel like they were like the last to skate through that American.
So like what family should be, and that rock of them for years and years. So visit them at a house where they go for the winter years. I've been with Brandon, those three. Oh, so little sad to think that, gosh, I didn't want to get choked up today.
The fact that we got
94 years with her. I mean,
I hope those genes transfer down to me because all of my family, all of that side of the family has lived into high 90s, over 100.
Yeah, and so Brandon's nanny is turning 93 in November, and she got 93 years with her sister. So, I mean, long, incredible life. But that, does trickle down to us, and now, getting one or all of us to get back to our old hometown in order to go to Aunt Sylvia's, and confirmed arrangements yet, and we're talking possibly this Saturday. I'm on top of it all.
And I'm super grateful, obviously, that we have that flexibility, that we don't have to. We can take the time off, and plane tickets last minute, I'm sure, are going to be ridiculous.
They are ridiculous.
And,
it is what it is, and it's got to get done. And, on it. It's been a little bit crazy. Fortunately for us, our spirits are in a good place. She's doing okay. I think, once somebody is passed away, they're not in our present life and, face to face anymore. So for us, it immediately turns hurting from her loss. And so that's obviously Nanny. Nanny is Brandon's world.
She's about all I got left out in an extended family.
Right. So he's been checked. She's okay, and she seems to be okay so far. So that's been probably anchor on the whole thing and setting up the plans. So that's where we're at on Middleton Madness. So we're going to keep it short this week because it's not the hot.
Do us a favor, keep our family in your prayers.
Yeah, keep us in your prayers, and more than anything else.
And call your grandma. Call your grandma this week and give attention because.
I want to say life is short, and 94 years really isn't a short life, but 94 years compared to really just a little blip of time. So,
true story.
Oddly enough, the day that Aunt Sylvia passed, the Billboard Music Awards were on that evening, and we never watch awards.
Background noise. We're talking
about Aunt Sylvia.
Putting that video together to remember. We just had that. We're kind of talking through it, and
I think we were just checking in with each other and make sure I seem weirdly good. I don't know. I'm a non-confronter with death, so we'll just put that out there.
And pretend like it doesn't happen.
It's not that bad, but yes, pretty much. So I put on the Billboard Music Awards because it was the only thing besides news that was on. So I'm like, we'll put this on, maybe some. And it was very weird because there were Celine Dion came on and sang "My Heart Will Go."
Crushed it.
Really crushed it.
I am not a Celine Dion fan by any means, but at her age and with her skill and the performance she put together, she was amazing.
Just Yeah, it's undeniably beautiful. But anyway, like, of all the songs to come on, that was a spiritual moment for us, because we're like, wow, this is crazy. Like, of all times that we never watch award shows, we put it on. My Heart Will Go On from Titanic, like, it's in memory of Aunt Sylvia. And then they did this like little they was just would have been last week, so, or this week, so whoop whoop, happy birthday to Biggie.
Notorious
he would have been
45.
Whoa, because it seems, and it doesn't seem like, he would have been 45.
Oh, I'm like, yeah.
He's crazy because, we only see pictures of him in his 20s. So, right? So, that came up, and we just looked at each other like, wow, 45, that's so crazy.
When he died? No, middle school. My goodness.
Gosh, was it that long? It was just that was a long time ago. They started, like, Puffy's up there, he's talking about Biggie, and they were talking about how the year that he passed, his mom came up and accepted an award for him, and I remembered watching that clip. Speaking of never watching award shows, but I did back in the day, so I had seen that, and it was very powerful to listen to. And they did, like, the little music montage where it was all a dream came out, or juicy, right? Like, it was, roll the clip. I want to roll a clip of the first verse without maybe the first couple lines of, like, very explicit cussing, pirate mouth, and then just go into, like, the first verse, and obviously, like, just I'm sure he swears in the first one. So like, he swears in all his, you don't like swearing, then, like, turn down the speakers for a minute. But let's play that clip because it's leading into our topic today.
To all the teachers, to all the people that lived above the buildings that I was hustling from, that called the police on me when I was just trying to make some money, and all the struggle. You know what I'm saying? It's all good, baby. It was all a Word Up magazine, Salt and Pepper and Heavy D up in the limousine, hanging pictures on my wall. Every Magic Molly Mall, I let my tape rock till my tape pop. Sipping on private stock, way back. Lumberjack with the hat to match. Remember rapping Duke? The hard, you never thought that hip hop. Now I'm
okay, so let's go into. It's a little weird because now, of course, we're recording and we've never acted like that for a clip. So we're back. All right. The end, just to sum it up real quick, like him back in the day and like how his life looked, right? And then he's talking to people that believed in him, and you never thought that hip hop would take it this far, but look at me, like I'm living the life.
If I can do it, you can too, kind of a thing.
Yep. And then you know very well who you are. Don't let them hold you down. I'm not a rapper or a singer, so I'm, and you could go look up the lyrics, obviously. But it really started making us think.
You don't have those lyrics memorized after all these years. I'd be
between the loss of Aunt Sylvia this week and then them talking about Biggie, and obviously an iconic part of like our lives because we grew
those,
like,
up
with it.
Nostalgic moments. We start. Why do we work this hard? Why do we push as much as we push? What's it all for? A portion of it really is, it's the American dream. Like, we all want to have a certain type of a modest lifestyle, or have some extras, and not just day-to-day life, and being able to take care of our family and here. And so we kind of got in this discussion about
the American dream.
What is the American dream? Because we think it's one thing. We have friends who would be happy with a totally different lifestyle. So
yeah, and so we found a couple of cool little tidbits. We didn't find one that resonated with, but we had a few different ones that we pulled pieces from. So the first
What's
thing...
the definition of the...
is like... Here, that's just 2 little paragraphs. I'm going to read it to you real fast. Okay, so before looking at day, we need to look at its roots. The Declaration of Independence protects your opportunity, no matter who you are. It boldly proclaims, quote, "We hold these truths to be self-evident and are created equal, that they are endowed by their creator with certain unalienable," and the big words, it's like, what happened to me? "That amongst these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of..."
Okay.
End quote. So it's pretty bold to say our founding fathers set the tone to what the American dream is. They didn't really spell it out because picture for what every American would think the American dream was, right?
They're just saying you have equal opportunity.
Everybody is born with the same amount of opportunity as the next, is what they're saying in America. Americans' rights to
That's the
be
founding
able
fathers.
to pursue
it doesn't
happiness.
Get more
yes.
Origination.
Yeah, so they basically say...
Now, it doesn't say that you're entitled to achieve certain things or that the government will provide you with the American. You have the freedom and the opportunity to
Yes.
create whatever you want to create.
It's saying you could be born into into a poor family. You could be born into a wealthy family, but you have same things as each other, and we're going to protect the rights of everybody to do that.
Yep.
Which is a grounding, I think, maybe when you're like, I've never really sat down and actually like thought about that. And when we think about America, because they say that this land is so free,
it's a land of opportunity.
It's from these types of paths. Sound so magical that protect the rights of everybody like that, but the reality is, don't think that this country, is free. There's a lot of people that don't think that this is so we just wanted to hash it out a little bit today. I found this really crazy. We found this crazy thing. Let me start with this.
Did you talk about John Adams?
That's what I'm
John
about to.
Adams.
Oh my gosh! Will you get out of your notes? He's like doing. So let me start with this thing that we found online.
I don't want him to miss anything. There's so much around this topic that I didn't even...
I know. Those topics where Brandon could probably go on for 3 hours today. So I have to make sure to keep us on track here. The phrase American Dream was invented during the Great Depression. It comes from a popular 1931 book by the historian who defined it as, quote, that dream of a land in which life should be better and fuller for everyone, end quote.
I think that's pretty accurate.
You do? And what does it mean to you?
Most of us say it. If you ask someone like, what do you want? Most of them be able to do more for themselves and their family than their parents were able to do for them. Most people have that story. Most aren't like, oh, I came out of this really wealthy family and I'd just be happy with, living. It said it right there. Better and richer. And rich not by the monetary definition, provide more than you had before.
That's monetary.
Right?
What's crazy is like this quote in this book came around during the Great Depression. So, America was at rock bottom. It couldn't get any worse, really, in America. One of the biggest tragedies for our country ever in all of history. There was this time, though, Americans the opportunity to thrive, right? And they did, compared to. But research now, and they're finding that, as you were saying, like the whole idea is that you said your parents give you the tools and the education and the love and support, whatever it may have you, that you lived. And that's kind of always been like a society theme, right? However, time period, and we were recovering from the Great Depression, like there were several decades that people born in 1940 were 92% more likely to do better than their parents. And so were probably alive during the Great Depression.
Right.
But as the decades go on, the percentage raising, it's like crazy how much they decrease, where if you were born in the 1980s, both Brandon and myself were born in the 80s, we're 50% coin. Are we going to be more successful than our parents? Flip the coin.
Compared to...
Heads I win, tails they win.
The generation before us. So our parents had how much likely?
Oh, that's a couple decades ago. We're 62%. So they had 12% more likely to do better than their parents. My mom...
Most important, it's trending.
My mom and dad both do better than their parents. I would debate that your mom and dad did not. So that's in our specific situation, but they have the research from like tax returns and stuff saying that it was 92% to 62%. Now it's down to 50 for the 80s, and the half, like the graph is just going down. And they have to kind of level it off here because they only have so much to go on. Like 1989, that's 7 years younger than me. So they just started their careers. They just got out of college. So there's not enough data to even go like much younger than us. I would be highly assumptive that that's going to just keep going down, right?
Right.
So that's scary. Now we get back, and what is that?
So we're doing our best to help you quantify. Well, first define what the American, quantify it, because let's be real, the American dream is, we put up feedback before this show, and it's custom. It's obvious that for the board, and some people, have a very different American dream than others. But if you were to take all Americans and the average, we're trying to get you at least some bumpers, some boundaries that you can do your math and take a look at, kind of your inventory and say, all right, am I on track? Do I not? So
and this is a real thing, like Brandon and I are not shy about saying we do 80 years old. I don't want to be bagging them when I'm 60. Like, we're really working hard with our business at the same time and keeping our marriage intact as well and be a happily married couple. And then on top of it, podcasts to be able to share this information with you guys. And it is for a reason. Like, this has kept us up at night, like thinking about these things, like that the reality of the American dream, like, and not existing is a reality, and we don't want anybody that is in our circle and our influence. So
that's how wars happen, the separation between the haves and the have-nots. Once that separation gets too wide.
But our circle a year ago was a lot smaller than launching our podcast. Now we have, I guess, like selfishly, unselfishly, the more people we're able to share this knowledge with, the more I'm alive and keep it going. That's
right. We're just going to go ahead and be ambassadors and dream.
Well, we are, because this isn't just a hobby to us, right? This is legitimately a passion of ours now, and it's topic came up this week, because it really is important to us. So, one thing that we did notice from these book before we start recording and see what they say. So, one person, people had a lot of feel good answers. And I don't want to knock any of our friends down for their response and it's your opinion.
Less than feel good, they were just not specific.
They weren't specific. And so it was like, I want to love my wife. I love that I get to wake up with my kids every day, and I'm happy to be alive again. And so me feel good. I'm happy for you and stuff. And so they have the right attitude. They have the right mindset. And that's the first to live the American dream. You have to have the right mindset. So many of the responses we got definitely have the right mindset, right? They're thinking happily. It was a lot less about the thing, funny enough, like cars and stuff like that, and more about the people in their life. Mm-hmm. A couple of debt-free. Like, they don't want to live paycheck to paycheck. They want to be beyond that, and that's living the American dream. It goes beyond that. We can't just look at this subject very, I don't want to down fluffy to be like, I just want to be happy. So you're going to be completely happy being homeless, begging for food, but you're with your husband and you love your husband, or what is happy? What is that? What makes you happy, right?
Right.
And you have to start defining.
That makes sense to be specific.
Yeah, you have to start defining what that American dream is to you. Most of it is going to, though, right? Like, you need to know your numbers. We talked about
only because that's how you and fill it with words to make it move. Like, things just cost money, and obviously
you can fill it with.
Oh my gosh!
Why are you laughing at me? Not all cars have gas now.
Oh, okay.
But all cars do cost money, so which is really important. And most of the things that make people happy, but there's things that make people, like, you guys like stuff. You like vacations
That means people don't like stuff. They like the way that having SUV. We waited forever to get an SUV, but
a brand new one at that.
When we car seat, it was no big deal. But now with 2 children and 2 car seats, and you go and you take a guest, or you and another family want to go out to dinner, it's just that much more of a pain in the butt. Or you want to go to a double stroller in the back of a Murano or in the back of a sedan.
Wheels off, and it's just annoying. It's not impossible.
It's a little thing, but it's the extra
quality
conveniences.
Yeah.
It's the extra quality, exactly, help with, but
So what I want to challenge is this: do you know what the American dream? If you don't, it's a great time to start sitting down and mapping that out and figuring out what, and you got to break this down in different time periods too, right? Because what you would like to see changed, and then you got to think. Don't just think about what makes us happy now.
It's your American dream, not your American now. So what's the dream look like?
Where
are you going? Where do you want to go?
Right.
If you get in a car, but you just are gonna, you're just gonna go and be free will and comes your way.
That's me when I was 18.
You might not get past. Some people find their way to California, the flow? Sure, of course. But more often than not, people are going to run out of gas, run out of time, get lost, you know what I mean? So you got to have at least some clarity on where you're, because it lets you take a look at your current situation and go, well, Am I halfway there? Oh, I'm sitting on a bicycle. I'm not going to be able to get there. I need to, right?
Yeah.
I need to make some adjustments.
Another thing that just came to mind too, that you want to make sure, like, we're so heavy on marriage and husband and wife, but my American dream is different than Brandon's, so I don't know, but I'll just throw that out there. Like, what I want many times is different than what Brandon wants, and we always have to find common ground, or sometimes it weighs more on Brandon's side, sometimes I get what I want more, but at the end of the day, comment on Facebook that all they wanted was to blah, 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 and I thought, my immediate, is that what makes their wife happy?
Right. Like a lot of the times the men will be very logical and be happy and will want some of the finer things in life, whether it's shopping or more vacations or the get-by starter home that a guy would be totally happy with, and
it's very sexist again, but you're like on this man-woman kick lately.
I'm just hundreds of conversations we've had with couples.
I am just teasing you. Really,
it always seems to be that.
Yeah. That in our household, it is like that. Like,
but that's what I love about you. You've always helped me stretch and helped me enjoy the journey. Otherwise, I was always going for the destination. Like, the means will sacrifice the end. So sacrifice, I'll eventually get there. Instead, there's a better balance and a better way to. You can do both.
Yeah, and again, how old was Biggie when he passed away? Or something. I mean, you're already beyond 25. Like, that is a good just get there faster. But at what cost is that?
Right.
Right. Like, you should be striving your whole life, not only when you're 50 or 60 or retired, right? It should be like some people I know, they literally out the next 20, 30 years in their job knowing that they get cut a nice retirement or whatever when they put in their 30 years, but they're not living life right now.
Right.
At all. Like they where they're at, but they don't want to make the changes.
You're alive, but are you living?
Yeah. So sit down with your spouse too and see where that plays out. His opinions on things may be a little different. And then once you start kind of like, don't harp on once you guys start figuring that stuff out, like really start to figure out your numbers. We talked a long money podcast. If you didn't listen to it, go back and listen to that. If you don't know your numbers, because hashing out exactly how you figure out your numbers. But on that specific podcast, we did talk on understanding like the percentage of your income that you should spend on your bills. We talked about that a little bit to help you be put in a better like financial situation. And we do feel like when you're in a good financial to live your American dream easier because you just have money gives you options, right? You have more options when you have more money. We talked about that back then, so I'm not going to go on it too much then, but knowing your numbers.
So let's give them some of those boundaries or some of those, like, because what if we literally like penciling down all of our expenses and like adding it up, and then like and our bills would change and we'd have to do that math all over again. Mm-hmm. So, and what has happened in years is I actually just use the tools that are available in our bank, our bank, the average. What does this lifestyle look like? And I can see the trends. I can just get an average. You don't need the exact penny because, well, this month you may have had 2 Starbucks, but last month having to put your stuff under a microscope like that is
but tough. Just the general. And that's where I sit down and figure out at least what your essentials are. Yeah. Right? At least what are your bare minimum?
What do you
For us, that's a great question. I'm going to talk about us real fast because we also found something on USA Today that talks about the average family of 4 and the estimate. Get into that in 1 second. But let's just share how we've done it because we've just done it over and over so many times. Based estimate of what, like, all else said and done, if we did nothing else and didn't enjoy life at all, like the bills to keep the roof over our head and the basic food on the plate for us.
House, car, groceries, gas. What are the other things? Clothes,
utilities, and even clothes for us is like once you're an adult.
Yeah, we're clothing optional. No.
If we don't know, but we're not clothing optional.
We don't have an office to go to every day, so we don't buy clothes for the office.
We go shopping very rarely is the point. We really spend like nothing on clothes. In case you can't tell from if you're a Miami t-shirt on. I think you got for me in CBS. So I really go the gold when it. But the USA Today article is really interesting because they say the average living for the American dream is $130,000 a year.
If you actually search it, there are a ton of been written based off of this article. So you definitely want to check it out.
Price tag for the American dream, and it's on usatoday.com. So this is the price tag for they're saying that the average family of four needs $130,000 a year to dream. So we're going to break this down a little bit on how they came up with that number. We just talked about the extras. So
they're saying the essentials for a family of four is $58,000 a year.
Is that what it said on 491? So just the essentials to get by, like $60K a year will cover your bills for a family of four. Not really going to do anything much more than that. So don't plan on eating out. Don't plan on doing anything. Then they say the extras. So they threw in a vacation in there, a vacation budget of $4,500, payment budget of $3,600, a restaurant budget of $3,600
for the year.
Light internet, cell phone, because by the way, that's not a necessity for most people. It's a luxury for most people. For that, and then they just have a miscellaneous of $2,000, and that added up to. Then they say, hey, don't forget, Uncle Sam wants his cut. So they're just tack on another $55,000. Tack on another $55,000 of that $130,000. You're going to give $55,000 of it away. What this article is saying.
So you make what is it?
$130,000, and it's to take away $50,000
for retirement. Like you don't get to spend that money now.
Oh, but you're going to get it later.
Even though you're making $130,000, $54,000 of it, you're not ever or for a very long time.
Yeah, the maximum contribution on the 401k, they would like you to put away $17,500 a year. They're saying if when you retire, if you want to maintain your $130,000, you need to be putting away $17,500 a year for every family of four. So Brandon and I would have to match collectively, so that when we retire, we still had $130,000 coming to us every year until we die.
Which I just want to take a second on that. I heard someone use Uncle Sam which I loved, and they were saying most new business owners don't realize that they have a partner, silent partner, as soon as they start the business. So, and we did this for years too, but luckily business, so we would just get our tax bill at the end of the year and be like, dang, we thought we had more in check.
Yeah.
And
again, money podcast, because we talked about how we lived way below our means for that's why we didn't sink in those times.
So that is the same, like you have in your house, Uncle Sam. He takes a third of your money for taxes. We all have to pay our taxes. I get it, and we all just want to pay our fair share. But the point is, like, you think, one of our neighbors was like, I always wanted to make six figures, and I finally looking, and I'm like, that's not the lifestyle that I thought it was, because it sounds cool. Everyone throws around six figures before taxes is different than six figures after taxes. So just keep that
that's
stuff
true. Yeah, so let's just round out on this real quick because we got to move on to your no BS business tips. But I want to just find this quick article because I'm sure this conversation may come up from somebody listening to the podcast that could live on a lot less. And there was
this isn't it's not the American can you live on a lot less.
So we did see this article that was kind of like $130K a year, like you could do, but they didn't really have any facts of what you really could afford. So what we took off of that was can live off less, but is that what makes you really happy? Is that living so again, it's important to know what the American dream is to you, and just things are always going to be okay is great, but you need to go a little deeper. I'm challenging you to dig a little deeper this week. Sit down and at least look at your numbers, because I shit you not. How much money do you make on blah, 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 and they don't even have an answer, right? How many book sales, how much, I don't know. How much did you make last week at work? I don't know. How much do you spend on your utility bills? And it's shocking to me. If you don't know where you are, how are you going to measure and get to where you're going? Right. It's a very scary thing. So
just to give you a quick picture of what that American dream looked like, they said it's a an SUV, and like Sam said, the $5,000 budget for
several if you want to spread it out. Yeah.
That's not over the top living.
No, it's not over the top living.
And I think the example that one article did give was that if you chose to live like middle America, you could live on significantly less. Like the cost of living by like, I think they said up to 45,000. So if you didn't want to make 100, if it didn't matter where you lived in the country, the reality is most of us are in an area of the country where our family is, where our friends are, where the kids, you're not going to make a decision. Most people aren't going to make a decision
just
off of
because
that.
it's cheaper to live somewhere else. In fact, most people want to make the decision to go move somewhere more expensive. Like many people are like, I want to live in San Diego.
Yeah.
Well, San Diego's beautiful, but it costs like 60% more to live on our research because San Diego is beautiful. We choose Tampa all day long. All right, let's go on to your. I only have one question for you.
Hang on, I have to go back. There was one thing you didn't. What is
real
that?
Quick? We got like 2 minutes.
The other thing they said about the American Dream, because I was watching the movie that I told you guys about, with McDonald's. That movie's awesome. But they were doing a press conference, and Michael Keaton was talking about this movie, and everyone outside of the U.S. actually thinks the American Dream is like America's streets are paved in gold. To live the American Dream is to live in a big mansion and have exotic cars. And he thought it was so fascinating. Americans that live in America don't even define the American Dream as that luxurious. Want to own a house, be able to have, a car or two, and be able to afford a little bit extra. And it's not so much about the thing.
And is that having the wrong mindset then? Because if Americans are okay with just settling.
So I don't think it's right. The research shows that most of us that live here agree with that statement, but most
way more agree into it. Right.
But the key there was home ownership is frequently cited as an example. So you can own your own home and you don't have to be a slave to a landlord basically and someone else controlling, being able to say, oh, I'm selling the house, which has happened to us. You and your family have to move now. Like, well, we like this area. We like this house. And so being able to control where you live, own your own home. But
a lot of people, that having the American Dream is not having debt. And if so congratulations, you own your dollars in the mortgage. I know. I'm just throwing that out there here. Okay. So it's like, and what's your American Dream? Right. That's what it boils down to. We're all right with a little bit of stuff. So owning your own
business and being your own boss is also represented as fulfilling those other two. We gave you some numbers, but then we also gave you some other definitions. Like if you are in control of your time, Barbara Corcoran, entrepreneurs will work 80 hours a week for themselves to avoid having to work 40 hours a week.
I know, I like that one. That one makes me laugh because it's very true.
So sit down, like Sam said, sit down with your family. I mean, the kids, if they're old enough to weigh in, it's important that they have a say in you guys want to live and what sacrifices you're willing to make in order to make other things work and so on and so forth.
So this really moves business tips again, because what came up with Casey and Orlando last week that we weren't able to, this week, which is when do you hold a property versus flip it, which sounds kind of silly to say it's tied in, but we have several times and we have a podcast coming up really soon, so stick in there for that one on real estate. Really can give people that freedom of being a business owner, that freedom, and give themselves something that they don't have to go work for, like the man, quote unquote, right? Like in real estate. So I thought this was a good question, since we didn't get to answer it last week, to bring back Casey. And again, it was, when do you hold a property versus flip it? It sounds like they're already an investor, or wanting to, and just want to know the difference.
Yeah, it depends. For the most part, we say you hold the property if your goals are, long term. If you have cash it's like retirement, right? If you have for the long term and you want to make a monthly check, then you want to get a 10% return, a 15% return. Well, you can park your cash in a property and get that through the income. If you don't have that much cash and you're looking for a quick turnaround now, for that quick nickel instead of the slow dime, then it makes to flip the property. But that said, so you got to consider your goals, what your investment goals are, and what your investment criteria is around what your risk tolerance is and what return you demand for your money. Put your money in one place and earn 5%. Are you willing to do that, or do we get at least a 10% return? And we usually get a bit more than that. consideration what your goals are, but then you actually have to just look at the investment itself. Look at the property. If the property is a house that rents for $800 a month, 10 grand worth of carpet and paint and landscape for $100,000 and make a $40,000 profit in 30 days, well, that's like you're basically only investing 50, 60,000, or you could borrow the 10. I mean, your return would be fast and a high return. So the property that if it's a property that makes sense to do it that way, then
move on.
You either move on or you
go back and renegotiate. Go back and talk to the seller and renegotiate. Maybe you see that there's going to be more expenses, and for whatever.
Yeah, it's all math, and
yeah.
if you're spending your own
your
cash,
numbers.
If you're spending your cash versus like borrowing it from a bank, you ask yourself, all right, well, is this exit strategy smarter, or is this? I mean, I look at it, so does it make more sense to hold it? Or?
The majority of the time, we do flip the contracts, not even flip the properties. Really, the time, patience, or resources, like the team and stuff that go and put all the time and effort into flipping a house and making slightly more, maybe on some deals, sailed, a couple of extra deals, which does happen because the wholesaling is so much of a faster process. So the majority of time, we flip the contract and wholesale it and just go on to the next one, because for us, and it helps us keep our focus on other things like Middleton Methods and our marketing company that are like our bread and butter, and the things we really enjoy doing versus real estate. Agree, but if we start like grouting tile and putting in floors and managing the people to do that, I wouldn't be interested in doing it, or tried that and we don't like it. So it's just not something that we enjoy doing. We enjoy the wholesaling, and personal preference on top of that. On top of the numbers.
We're paying attention to the market, and when the market is high for 3 months, 6 months.
Because you could totally lose your butts like we did in 2005. Especially if you're
inexperienced in things like that.
Yeah.
There's plenty of people that are doing rehabs and doing just fine.
All right, let's, do you want to do that one more question? Somebody sent in a question, like an audio question.
Oh, you just want to give a shout out to our...
My name is Anthony. I consider you and I family because we're both a part of BU. But anyway, wife and I listen to you and your wife's podcast. It's extremely entertaining, one. But two, it gets us into some conversation. Hey, we should do things like this, and oh, wow, we should implement this thing. So I just, first of all, want to thank you for that. Second of all, as to what you and Sam actually do, like what is your job? It sounds so interesting. So if you could maybe, I could share with you some of the things that I do, and maybe you can give me into income.
Okay, so basically what he's asking is, I have things that I really like working me money, right? How do I turn that into money? How do I pay the bills with it? How do I pursue that more? Bills, right? So first off, thanks for the shout out at the beginning. That's awesome. Thanks for listening. You probably didn't even know we were sharing this today because I don't think Brandon asked. So I hope you're okay with that, that question. For us, a long time ago, it really to what our skill set was and what our skill set was becoming, and figuring out the market needed. Understanding our customers and what they needed from what we could provide. Really just had to start testing the market. At first, we undersold ourselves, and we did it for dirt cheap because we didn't know, we also weren't that experienced either. So we didn't have a lot of skill, but we had, so it was worth a price for them. And as we got smarter and developed our company to begin raising our prices, finding better quality clients that were willing to pay more, and team members to help us with things so that we could focus on other income generating pieces of that business as well. So really, when you're taking a look at things you're passionate about, what is it that you're really good at what you do? What is it that other people are looking for, like the help from you or what you're helping them with? And then on top of it, what does that market need? Like, what could use some?
Yeah.
Like, what kind of package? Like, if it's not a product, obviously, right? So it's probably something that right now that you're passionate about. And what is that? Is it marketing? Is it consulting? What is it that you're doing into a profit?
Yeah, and I heard him say money, but what I know he meant was I want to make more money. Because I'm sure he's getting paid, been paid for what he's doing, but the challenge is that gap between and what is your American dream cost, right? Like there's a gap that people who have side businesses basically, but they still need to work a day job completely different and far less rewarding than that thing they really want to do and are passionate to do. Follow our instruction here and sit down with his wife and take a look at, what really and what does it look like monetarily for the time being, and do some math. And are you in a market, or do you provide a service that your customers can basically fill that gap, right? Like if you need, where are those customers that, like who would 10 clients at, $1,000 a month? Is it, what is, it just comes down to math. And
it does. And then they want or need as well, like your customer. Many people make the mistake of starting a business, package or service or whatever it is that I'm going to go sell and I'm going to make a lot of money doing, but they didn't even need it or wanted it. So when they go to whoever they think their customer is to sell it to them, they're like, yeah, I got it. Well, you're not really showing me how or why I need this. What I actually need is this. So be real, because Brandon was so good at that. I mean, he still is. He was so good at that back in the day. He was starting out, right? Because he was like so hungry to build a business for us that he was what our customers needed. And then sitting down with me, since we, are partners, and would that we needed to make and our company was going to be. And then after we discussed them, we kind of mapped out, okay, like we would brainstorm, what does that look like?
We don't have this, how do we go get it?
Yeah, how do we get it? And a lot of times we had to also make shifts, grow the business, right? So sometimes it was, hey, it's not just about going and making more we need. We also need to cut back for the next few months to afford the web developer to then say that we have this web developer that we can do online stuff, development, right? And that was one little step we had to take. We moved into family's house for 5 months. We were a young couple with no kids back then. So we went and moved in with a locally there that we could start working with until we were ready to move away, plan on keeping them remote, started as a test, on their salary. But it worked for them and paid, grew from there.
And Anthony, be open to the fact that what you're doing right now may not be the thing that is going to be your vehicle, and that's okay. Ideally, we all want to always be waking up every day and only working on our passion projects, and again, I think it's just math. And if example that I know, if I know that I need to, I want to start this new, or I want to write a book and become an author and create a whole business around that, and money investment. Now, it may not take necessarily money to just buy the book, editor, and things like that. Like, forget about that. I'm saying if it's going to take you a year or 2 years worth of every extra bit of time that you have, that book, and go speaking and go on tour, and maybe you need to take a step back. Real estate's the easiest one, obviously the one that we're biased towards, and do and go, and in your first year make that your only focus.
Yeah.
And
that's a great
year
point.
2, make it another, and then use those funds to support your family, pay for your holding costs, so that you can invest in yourself.
Yeah, that's a great. Cool. So I hope that was a lot of information. I think we went over. Really helped you out there. If you have anything else, back out to Brandon, and we can keep the conversation going. So thanks again for sending it in.
Do you have time for me to ask you a question?
Sir, for our marriage minute? Sure. Yeah. Let's roll.
So, being kind of an eventful week, I just want to ask you, how do you feel about, and really have, hopefully it's as long as it possibly can, but life is short. So how do you feel specifically translate into our marriage?
Well, that's okay. So how does that translate into our marriage? Well, I'll say this: I'm a very big non-confronter on death. I don't.
What does that mean?
Oh, non-confront means like somebody dies and I have my moments, really I don't even have, kind of privately, where I have my moments where I may cry for a few minutes and get out a little bit of the emotion, but then I'm like, right, the person's dead and they're not coming back, and they'll live on in my memory, and I'll keep living and striving to make them proud, especially. I kind of feel about death, and like, I don't know, I don't like to be I don't like to be all like dark and twisty and sad. I don't like to feel or look like I'm a victim to people, so it's just maybe a character trait of mine, but I'm a red here personality-wise, like I'm very strong, right? So I do cry. I'm just like, all right, let's just get it out and move on. Like, because it's not going to serve me to just be depressed every day, right? So like, I'll have my moments, maybe in the shower or something, where I just get upset for a minute. And then I'm like, okay, it's time to just move on. Because the reality is, for very many years, especially like as we were falling more deeply, literally the thought of death scares the crap out of me, that like you could die before. Can't talk about it too much. It'll get me so upset. But, don't squeeze my lie. Gosh, people, he's trying to make me cry for you right now. No. But that it's more important that I'm living every day, right? So I'm always telling you I love you, or this is gosh, I'm really mad at Brandon at the moment. Excuse me. Just all that stuff combined, right? Like, I don't want to lose you before our time, but I also don't be focused on our goals, the things that make us happy, the experiences that we're having. Yeah, right. Like, we would never even think about anybody else ever again, because we live such a full life with each other. So that's like my big hitting. But really, in all reality, like, I would never want my kids to think that they didn't have these. That's a hard one. I'm very mad at you right now.
I love you.
Recording us today. So now I'm like all crying, smiling like a crazy lady, laughing.
So what I think you're trying to say is...
That's why I don't think about death. It's sad. Who wants to think about death? Think about life and living.
Right. I'm not saying how do you think about it. Like,
you said how do you life?
How does it translate into our marriage? So it sounds like you don't think...
If I'm focused on
death makes you think about life so much, living life as much as possible.
Death is not something I would like. You're not dead, so I'd rather be thinking like more like we're just it's here we go podcast of last week. Like, it's not serving us at all for me to come up like I'm worried. And for years it did. Like, in my head I'd be like, oh my god, I'm worried. What if Brandon died? So I just don't focus on that stuff anymore. But I am. Like, there are important things just to hit on really fast in a marriage, because I took that like way more emotion. But on a realistic side, I do treat conversation about death. I'm very realistic about it. I'm not afraid to talk about it. But there's things about it that are very business oriented and just... do you guys have life insurance for yourselves? Like, if we want to just get real and serious, emotional stuff can come into play, but there's a real time where hopefully somebody sits you with your spouse and says, listen, death is real, death happens, and are you prepared for it? You know, what happens if you die before your husband or your husband dies before you? I've been asked that before, and all the answers, we didn't have them all, down to the fact that, like, at the time, we didn't even have life. One of those moments where we're immediately like, okay, we have to get life insurance. And then we started a family, building assets, on top of that. And we're like, oh my gosh, okay, so now we have to have our wills, who's getting the land, where, who's the house going to, and who's going to take care of our kids. And these are all like variations about death that are important to sit down.
That's the business side of
I may not confront death like 95% of the time, but I know when we have to get decisions or whatever, to me, that part's, very business-like, and try not to get emotional. And those say it is very beneficial to know the answers to things if you're going to die, because it's a very sticky topic, right? Mm-hmm. Death and wills and families, literally family members in my family that don't talk, because when my grandmother passed away, she really didn't very well laid out, and it caused the family to argue. Yeah, just have your stuff straight. Do you need life insurance policies, or do you have your will children? Who's going to be taking care of them? Those are some very important ones to think of. And I'll write a blog post, or we could even do a whole podcast about that if you guys are interested in it, and we get enough feedback, then we can roll that out too. Celebrate life every day.
Go live your life.
Go live life. Yes. Don't be a big this morning. I think life is a great thing, and every day I'm just like doing today to make sure that we've lived. Like if there's 1 or 2 or 3 days that go by, I feel like we worked way too much, didn't appreciate each other enough, didn't tell each other that we love enough hugs. Like it puts us in check quick. It does, because life really is short. 94 years is not a long time, and I didn't even get to spend 94 with you, more than likely, unless we live to be. So I hope that answered your question, or cried along with me today. Thanks for letting me be vulnerable.
All right, guys, and the rest of our listeners out there who have taken the time to go to iStar rating or leave us a review. We really appreciate you helping us get this out to more and more.
Yes, thank you so much, guys.
And like we always say, I'm going to say this week, life's not easy. It takes work, but we put in the work to make it work. And don't take. Thank you guys, love you guys, and we'll see you next week.
See you next.
I can make the pain disappear, erase the past. Oh, I can make the future shine, and I can make right now